It happened. We've waited all offseason for the Cubs to sign Cody Bellinger, and they finally did it. Let's get into the contract and how this impacts the team for 2024. I cannot believe it, but the Cubs at 1:15 a.m., at least that's what time I got the notification on my phone last night, Central Standard Time, signed Cody Bellinger to a 3-year, $80 million deal. Now, it does have 2 opt-outs. We're going to get into the contract here in a little bit, but if you hear my voice being a little bit hoarse, it's because I was so damn stoked out of my mind when I found out about this news. And honestly, I was even surprised that I was up at that time, but it's a good thing I make a video right then and there because we had some celebratory drinks. Now, I'm going to Sloan today because I want to see if Cody Bellinger signs up. He's from Chandler, Arizona, so he's probably been hanging out here the entire offseason anyway. The thought that he might show up in Cubs camp today is not unrealistic, so we're going to head out there. We're going to see if we can get anything. And of course, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking us out on Instagram and on Twitter at SetupManPod to make sure that if we do have any news about that, if there's any video, if there's any sort of updates, if I see him, you will be the first to know. And by the way, I'm sure Joe from Obvious Shirts is probably going to put out some Cody Bellinger swag. Make sure you go use our discount code down below in the description. But let's get into this contract. It's a 3-year deal for $80 million. This year, he'll make $30 million. Next year, he'll make $30 million in 2025. And then in 2026, he will make only $20 million. But guys, if he plays just as well this year or next year as he did in 2023, Cody Bellinger is going to be going through this entire process again. I hate to break the bad news, but if he does have a good season, we're going to see him opt out. We're going to see him go do this whole circus again with Scott Boras. But the deal looks like this. After year 1 and after year 2, he has opt-outs, which means that if, again, he does play well, he's probably going to opt out, just like what he did in this 2023 season. He played well. He was the comeback player of the year. And then the Cubs had an option to re-sign him in 2024, but he declined it because he wanted to test the open market. Scott Boras was comparing his upcoming contract to that of Bryce Harper, Corey Seager, who got over $300 million a year. But both of those guys were coming off of a tenured great career, whereas Cody Bellinger has gone through ups and downs. So it was kind of one of those things where all Cubs fans, right, this entire offseason have been wondering, is Jed missing out on an opportunity? Is he going to miss out on the comeback player of the year and potentially that MVP form and rookie of the year form of Cody Bellinger, re-signing him just because, quote unquote, a lot of Cubs fans saying that he's cheap, but that's not the case. He played this thing correctly, guys, and we started hearing about that from guys like Bob Nightingale, from Bruce Levine, and all of these guys were saying, hey, Jed played this right. No one else is willing to put up the money for Cody Bellinger, and he likes Chicago. The Cubs liked him. It's a comfortable place. It makes sense on both sides. They need each other, according to what Bruce Levine said, and for that reason, this deal ended up getting done in favorable terms, honestly, for both sides, because Jed and Tom Ricketts don't have to front a giant bill like what we were kind of hearing at 7 years, 8 years, over $200 million. And Cody Bellinger still gets to prove himself and say, hey, if after this next year, I go and show that 2023 was not a fluke, it was who I am, and 2020, 2021, and 2022 were just because of injuries, because of the COVID season, because of some X factors that were out of his control, and for that reason, those were the blip on the radar, not all the seasons where I was the MVP and the Rookie of the Year, and in 2023 when I was Comeback Player of the Year. That's what he got to say, and now he gets to go and prove that again in 2024, and if that is the case, well, then, you know, Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts are going to have a decision to make during the 2024 offseason, hopefully after celebrating a playoff berth, which we'll get to more in a little bit here, and that's when Cody Bellinger might get that big payoff. So here's the picture from what we've seen so far from the Cubs this offseason. They lost Marcus Stroman, who surprisingly opted out early on in the offseason. We were pretty sure that we were losing Cody Bellinger, but now Shota Imanaga, Hector Neris, Michael Busch, Yency Almonte, plus Cody Bellinger. This team is primed, in my opinion, to be right around an 85 to 90 win team, which means in this weak division, they're probably the favorites in a very unimpressive NL Central. Not to mention you got Craig Counsell, who's not a free agent signing, but he is a major addition to this team, and with him moving the right chess pieces around on this chessboard, there's probably going to be another few wins just because of that. You saw him do it with the Brewers for many years, and there's no reason reason to expect him not to do the same thing with the Cubs. Now, how does this impact the Cubs lineup? Well, let's take a look. I think Nico Hoerner is probably going to bat leadoff. You got Ian Happ batting second with that high on-base percentage in left field. Cody Bellinger prime for that number 3 spot. You might even see Counsell kind of switch things up and maybe put Happ first, Hoerner second, or every once in a while bat Bellinger second. He did say that he wants to get the best players the most at bats on this team, so I would not be surprised if Bellinger's batting second, but I've got him in third right now. Seiya Suzuki, after that monster second half, is probably going to be in there at the cleanup spot. You've got Christopher Morel. So far, if he can prove himself at third base, is probably going to be the opening day third baseman. Dansby Swanson at shortstop. Canario, I think, is going to be the DH. Michael Busch at first base. Put the guy low in the batting order to make sure that he doesn't have a lot of pressure on him being his official rookie season. And then you've got the Yan Gomes / Miguel Amaya catcher position in the 9 spot. And of course, you've got Madrigal on the bench, you've got Wisdom on the bench, you maybe even have Mervis on the bench. This gives the Cubs lineup so much more depth. Now you don't feel like you're forcing a square peg into a circle hole in that middle of the lineup. You do feel like you have that middle of the lineup bat with Cody Bellinger. And I do believe that PCA comes up in probably May or June, pushes Bellinger over to first base, which is just as good of a position for him, if not maybe even a little bit better for the Cubs. Busch is probably a liability at first base based on what we've been hearing. I've been here at spring training. I have not been unimpressed by him at first base. I'm no MLB coach, but I will say he doesn't look half bad. But it would be an upgrade for the infield if Bellinger plays first base. And then you've got PCA in center field, Gold Glove infield, Gold Glove outfield. This makes the Cubs that much better. We're starting to see some of the pieces get put together. We're starting to see some clarity in this lineup. I can't wait to see if there's anything else going on before the end of the season. Oh, by the way, this is just so y'all know, I'm keeping to my word here. If you remember, when I put out a video saying that if the Cubs don't make 2 major league moves before the start of the season in Texas, I will be giving away my Andre Dawson signed jersey. Now, Bellinger is number 1. If David Peralta or if Dominic Smith make the team, which I don't see happening, maybe David Peralta, that is number 2. But if that doesn't happen and they don't get anyone else, I'm giving away that jersey. So make sure if you did miss that video, go check it out. It just popped up on your screen. That's going to do it for us here on The Setup Man. I'm going to make sure that I get the first shot of Cody Bellinger if he's over there at Sloan Park today. So make sure you're following us, subscribe to us. I'm going to go put my arm on ice. I'm stoked, Cubs fans. Let's go.